Welcome back to It's Up to You. This is Minda Wilson, and I have today two very interesting guests, Dr. Solomon Saddie and Dr. Hans Diehl. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I understand that you've been, you get to travel quite a bit in your work as a political analyst, and that all the travel and all the stress of your life working in the Middle East has caused some health issues for you. Is that true?
That's true, yes. I had a health issue as stress and other things go with this, yes, ma'am. Yeah.
And so how did that affect your heart?
Well, one day I had some pain in my shoulders and I was sweating a lot. And I drove myself to the hospital. You know, I have a friend, he's a pharmacist, and he was driving me, but slow, very slow, but I was having a lot of, sweating and pain. I told him to stay, on the front seat, and I drove to the hospital, to Redlands Hospital, and they found out I have a massive heart attack. Then they took me directly to Loma Linda Hospital because, the Loma Linda is a specialist in the, and I went there and they put 2 stents. And
wow.
the EF, it was 10%. The heart was working only 10%.
Oh my goodness!
So I stayed in the hospital 3-4 days because I want to make sure that I can go home and somebody can take care of me. And 3-4 days later, I went home, and I was peeled. I didn't have a lot of energy. I didn't have all kinds of things that I used to have. And, I don't know what to do. And nobody told me about the diet or what should I eat or nothing. Just be careful, and that's all.
So how did you meet Dr. Diehl?
Dr. Diehl, a man who saved my life. I met him like this. I go to church once in a while. Not really very often.
Yeah.
And one day I told my sister that, I have an urge to go to church. Please come with me, because I never drove by myself after what happened. I need someone to be with me. And she said, oh, I don't have time. Maybe the mass is over and the service is over. The next week I have more urge. I wanted to go to church. I said, I want to go to church even if I just step into the church. Something is telling me to go there. Then we went there, and they have a graduation for the medical school, and this middle chairs were taking. And I had to go to the right side. I sat, and there is a man with his beautiful wife sitting next to me. And after half an hour, he leaned towards me, said, sir, would you like to have dinner in my house? I looked at him. I don't know this man. I know he looks wonderful, decent, tie, suits, and his wife dressed very nice, but I never met him. Wow. How could I go to his house? And I asked my sister. She said, I don't know. Then I told him I have a lecture in San Diego to do at 8 o'clock. I can't have dinner. Then 10 minutes later, he said, how about after the service, if we can have lunch? I looked at my sister. I said, okay. Then I asked him, are you a doctor? He said, well, he was very humble and all of that. Yeah, you can say that. I'm a doctor. So that was related to me. I said, I have a heart problem. That would be a good chance to talk to him, to see him. And I asked him a question. But I didn't know what kind of doctor he was.
Right.
So he drove in my car, and my sister drove in his wife's car. We get home, beautiful home, nice. And I look around, there's a lot of newspaper. Dr. Hans Diehl, this and that. Dr. Hans Diehl on television. Dr. Hans Diehl, one of the top docs. Oh my God, that means I am in the right place.
You hit the jackpot.
Yes. So I asked him, who are you, my friend? Then he told me that what kind of specialty, and we start being a friend, and he put me on a diet program, that, a chip program. And he recommended a place to go to called Health Lifestyle Medicine in South Dakota. At the time, I lost 30 pounds, and I gained again my energy back, and I went to this place, and Dr. Hans Diehl and we become a friend, and I don't do anything without consulting with him.
Wow.
And, I cut down in medicine. I stopped smoking. I don't eat any animal product, including meat, of course. And I'm doing well, and that's why you see me here, because of his help.
Wow. So when you first met him, what made you say, I have to talk to this person?
Well, I have a pretty compassionate way about myself, and he looked like a fairly decent person. I asked him, is this your first time here in this church at Loma Linda there?
Yeah.
And so, one thing leads to another, and before you know it, it seemed that this was a fairly educated man. It was very obvious. And I said to my wife, do you think we can bring him home? And then the sister, yes, my wife is very, very, very easygoing. Yeah, no problem. So we had a wonderful getting acquainted. This was your first house call.
That was the best call ever.
So it was very, very interesting to see how a man was struggling for recovering his health, but he really didn't have much counsel of what he should do, because most of our diseases are largely self-made. They're culturally promoted. How we eat, how we drink, if we smoke, if we don't get enough exercise. These are the kind of things that drive these diseases.
Right.
And so, I asked him, do you really know what heart disease is? Well, he said, yeah, I guess. And so then I said, can I show you a video clip? So I showed him this video clip.
I first woke up, so to speak, when I was working on the anesthesia service, learning how to put people to sleep. And I was seeing my patients for the next day's surgery for coronary artery bypass surgery in order to bypass clogged arteries in their heart. Because it was late at night, I drew the man's blood test, and when I took the blood to the laboratory and had it processed, I couldn't believe my eyes. Now, normally, this liquid layer floating on top of the blood clot is quite transparent. It's a yellow, but quite clear. You can see right through it. The blood in this patient's tube, however, was anything but clear. The serum floating on his clot was thick and greasy white. It looked like glue. In fact, it stuck to the sides of the blood tube when I shook the tube. I went back to the patient. I said, Mr. Phillips, did you eat before you came to the hospital tonight? He said, yes. I said, what did you have? He said, I had a cheeseburger and a milkshake. And when he said that, I realized that what I was looking at in his tube was all the fat in the beef burger, all the butter fat in the cheese, and the butter fat in the ice cream and in the milkshake. And all this fat had oozed out into his blood and actually turned his blood fatty. Well, 30, 40, 50 years of keeping your blood very fatty creates changes in the blood vessels that are very dangerous.
Over the years, arteries can become clogged with fatty material. Then a blood clot can form, blocking the blood flow completely. If the artery leads to the heart, the lack of oxygen can cause heart muscle to die. That's a heart attack. If the clogged artery leads to the brain, the patient has a stroke.
The next morning, we took Mr. Phillips to the operating room, and I put him to sleep, and the surgeon opened up his chest. And from these arteries, he began pulling out yellow, greasy deposits of fatty material called atherosclerosis.
Oh my God, that's just shocking.
Yeah, did you see that? That is the underlying disease process for most of our chronic diseases that are circulation related. Did you see the narrowing of the arteries?
Oh, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe, and does that happen to everyone, or does that happen only if you lead a certain lifestyle?
Well, this is the American way of closing your arteries. That's what everybody seemingly suffers from because we live a certain lifestyle. You go to other countries, it's difficult to find. In our society, it's very common. What you see is a narrowing of the arteries where you have cholesterol buildup. There are fats and calcium. They become very hardened.
Right.
And they progressively narrow more and more as time progresses. So when you are 50, 60, 70 years of age, you're guaranteed to have 60, 70, 80% narrowing. And by that time, you then develop your first sign, sometimes called angina. And that's sometimes a blessing when you get angina pain, because in 40% of the cases, the first sign of heart disease is sudden death.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's why we need to change when we can.
So you're saying that if we have these narrowing of the arteries, it happens throughout your entire body, right? It's not just in one place.
That is a very important point. From the top to the bottom, there's a circulatory system. There are 60,000 miles of blood vessels in the human body.
Wow.
Right. And the large vessels, they become affected by this narrowing process. We call this atherosclerosis or hardening of the arteries. And when that happens to the brain arteries here, then you have to worry about mental decline. You have to worry about Alzheimer's. You have to worry about stroke. When it happens to the eyes, the vessels of the eyes, you have to worry about vision loss or acuity loss. When it happens to the arteries, to the ears, then you have hearing loss. And there it is. Coronary arteries, you have troubles with the heart. You have the renal arteries, the kidney arteries, you have trouble with your kidneys.
Wow.
You have the arteries to the male sex organ, and that's called,
Viagra.
yeah, this is not a Viagra deficiency.
Right.
What that is a narrowing of the arteries.
Huh.
And for some people, the first sign of hardening of the arteries and a potential heart attack is what happens to the penile arteries in the men.
Really?
Yes.
So
By the time they're
interesting.
40, 45 years of age, they think, well, I'm just over the hill. That's just the way it is. No. It doesn't have to be that way. This is narrowing of the arteries.
Huh. So what can they do to avoid having a heart attack? What can they do?
Well, there are many, many things that you can do. When you look at this little arch here that you see there on the screen, you see at the very top is cholesterol. These are the drivers of the narrowing process. Cholesterol, and then you have high blood pressure, and then you have on the other side, you have smoking and diabetes, overweight, lack of exercise. These are the drivers. And if you can do something about these drivers, then you can dramatically minimize the occurrence of some of these very catastrophic events.
But I've heard there's like good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. I mean, how do you know that you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing or?
It's very confusing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. In general, when you bring your cholesterol down with diet, you are assured that you're lowering the risk of a heart attack. For instance, you see here again a listing. For instance, if you have a high cholesterol, in this case 310, you have high blood pressure, you have diabetes, you're a smoker, you didn't pass the treadmill test, you're 35 years of age, the chance of a heart attack in 6 years is 140 times more likely to happen when compared to if your ideal numbers.
Huh. Wow.
So you see, these are drivers that sort of give us an idea what our likelihood is of developing this disease process.
But what you're saying is you actually have control over this, that people can control their health and take control of what's causing these things.
If you look back at this arch that we showed earlier, they're stars, yellow stars. That means these factors are all largely, predominantly, under the control of diet. What do you put at the end of your fork and knife? It's really up to you, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
And so the diet, the foods that we eat, plus some of the other factors, they either can cause the disease or if you make better choices, they can cure the disease. We can cure heart disease.
I believe you. I mean, it sounds like, how would you suggest for people who are listening, what are some simple changes that they could make that would improve their health?
To give you some other idea, just in case some men are listening and they're kind of thinking about Viagra, you stop smoking, you do something about your diet, simplify your diet, simple foods that occur in nature naturally, and before you know it, things are beginning to look up again. Yes. I mean, we have this over and over again. The body always wants to heal itself. But you cannot run a Ferrari very long if you pour kerosene in it. You've got to put the right fuel in. And so what you put at the end of your fork and knife becomes very, very important. It's really up to you if the food becomes a slow-moving, shall I say, poison?
Right.
Or is it going to become a very powerful medicine that can help you to see things looking up again for you?
So you're saying maybe eat some more vegetables would improve people's health, cut out some sugars, maybe processed food. I'm trying to figure out what are some simple things that if they don't have access to, a clinician that can guide them in the process, people might do to help themselves.
Shall I give you a prescription that will take 30 seconds?
I love that.
Number one, try to avoid foods that have nutrition labels.
Huh.
These are processed foods, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're no longer made the way they came to us in nature. We take potatoes, we turn them into potato chips. They're totally different. We take corn, we turn them into corn chips. They're totally different, right? You take tomatoes, you turn them into ketchup. They're totally different products. And that's why the government says you need to have a nutrition label so people can make more intelligent choices. So number one, try to avoid processed foods, foods that have nutrition labels. Number two, try to be a little bit careful with foods that have warning labels. When you go to the meat counter, you buy a chicken, there are always instructions. Be sure you wash everything carefully. There's salmonella, there's this and this. Try to cut back on animal products. We don't need that many of these animal products because there's no fiber in these foods. These are not foods in our best interest, and these are the foods that contain the cholesterol and the saturated fats, which cause the cholesterol to go up. And the cholesterol is one of the big drivers of the narrowing of the arteries. So if you want me to enlarge on this a little bit more, we would always recommend, and that's what we did with Solomon. Yes. Solomon had to really change his concepts. He said, Solomon, more fruits. More fruits? Fruit juices? No, fruits. Oh. Solomon, more vegetables. Vegetables? Yeah, green vegetables. Potatoes. Potatoes are fattening? No. What you do with them? So more fruits, more vegetables, more whole grains.
Okay.
What do you think of whole grains?
A lot of people don't know what whole grains are.
Yeah.
Like they think white rice might be a whole grain.
No. We talk about brown rice. We talk about barley. We talk about whole wheat. We talk about, these kind of foods that you can find in the area where you can buy it. It's easily available there, right?
Right.
It doesn't come in cans. It's on the shelf. So whole grains, not white flour, but whole grains. Okay. And then, of course, you have what I think everybody should be eating this more and more and more, and that's legumes. Remember we talked about legumes?
Yes.
You said, Doctor, we have lots of beans in the Middle East.
That's a lot.
Eat them. We got 50 different kinds in this country here. They're loaded with nutrition. These are royal nutritional packages. Lentils. And then often perhaps people come to me and say, Sir, have you ever heard that these foods are kind of antisocial? I said, they're antisocial for about 2 or 3 weeks because the body's not used to all the fiber, the good fiber that comes into your system. But after about 2 or 3 weeks, things are calming down. You'll be just fine. Enjoy it. I've been doing this for 40 years.
Right, and one of the problems I see with people that I know is that they don't know how to prepare them so that they taste good. So, there are a lot of sources for recipes and a lot of opportunities for people to learn and be creative in their cooking.
Yeah, that's why we have a CHIP program, the Complete Health Improvement Program, where we usually have people in groups. There are 30 people, there are 100 people, there are 500 people, and we teach them why people should change, and then we show them how to do it.
Interesting.
Because just telling people have a breakfast every morning to break the fast of the night, they don't know what to do, right? They don't go. They go to fast food places and say, well, I got my breakfast. No. We're talking about a whole grain, multi-grain, nice breakfast with some whole grain bread, have some fruits with it, get ready for the day, make it the foundation of the day. We have to teach people how to do it and do it in groups so you have a good time with it. And then what we do, we go to the stores and we go to the restaurants. We said, we have now 500 people here that are graduates of our CHIP program. They're looking for healthy foods. They want to go out. They enjoy going out. Can you help us?
Wow.
Well, what do we need to do? Can I send a dietitian to your restaurant? Would you be willing to do it? They have succeeded marvelously, profit-wise, because when they remove some of the meat from their lasagna and replace it with something that almost tastes like meat, the people don't even know the difference, but they know it's healthy, the profit margin goes up. So we need to work with the community. We want to make this a community project so that there's social support, because to do it all by yourself can easily fall off the wagon, isn't it?
Right, right. And, you know, it's a collective experience. So
It is.
people like to eat with other people. They like to conversation. It's the best way, right?
And you know what is amazing to me is that we can actually show people that these closed arteries can open up again. There's a major research professor, a teacher by the name of Dr. Esselstyn at the famous Cleveland Clinic. What he does, he puts people on a very simple diet. He said, I want you to eat more fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, right? That's it.
Right.
Prepared easily, don't use too much sugar, don't use too much salt, don't use too much fat, simple food, simply prepared.
Huh.
Within 1 year, he was able to show that the arteries begin to open up again.
How fantastic.
The cholesterol drops 20-25%.
Wow.
When you lower their cholesterol, the heart disease risk goes down by twice the amount. So you bring your cholesterol down by 25%, you've cut your risk of a heart attack in half, 50% reduction.
So a lot of people I know, and me included, spend money on supplements. Do you feel that by following the kind of diet you recommend, that supplements are still something they should be looking to, or do you feel it's something that they can be eliminated?
That's a very good question. You know, sometimes some people that are in a recovery from serious diseases, they may need some time, some of these supplements. What we don't oftentimes appreciate is the body uses about 100,000 different micronutrients. When you have an orange, it's not just vitamin C.
Right.
It's some 50 plus different micronutrients that activate the vitamin C to really work well. And so we prefer to help people to understand that you get all the micronutrients, you get all the nutrients that you need if you eat the food as it comes to us in nature.
So, and how do people learn more about what they can get from food? Like, if you don't eat enough protein, you have to go to, you have to have your legumes. If you just eat fruits and vegetables, no protein, you could get in trouble, right? So, how do they learn how to put all that together in a proper diet?
Well, I'm glad you asked this. That's why we have a 35-hour educational program to help people understand and show them how to do it. And once you settle in for a more natural lifestyle, you have some exercise, you get enough sleep, you become a nicer person.
That sounds good.
You know, a lot of things begin to happen. And nature has been very generous in helping us through long, long, long periods of time, right? We have always lived very well. We have never had a society that had to have meat in order to live well and do well. As a matter of fact, these countries usually don't have our chronic diseases that relate to the arterial narrowing that we talked about. They die from other diseases because they have poor hygiene.
Right.
But if we have our best of hygiene, and we have a simple diet, and we enjoy life, we set out to do some good to someone else, you have the formula for dying as young as possible, as late as possible. What I'm saying to people is, you can die younger later.
Right.
You see, it's not just good enough to live longer,
Right.
but you want to die young.
Yeah, you can be youthful and vigorous.
Yes.
At a much later time in life.
And that's why, we always like to help people to take a look at a little movie that we have, 1 minute, comes from Canada. It talks about, what about your last 10 years of life? What will they be like? I know yours will be different now, Solomon, because you have made some real changes. And I want you to know I'm very, very proud of what you have done.
Thank you for, making this all happen. The EF that we talked about, 10%, now it's over 50.
Oh my goodness.
Because of the CHIP program and the diet that he put me on.
So that's the flow of blood through your heart.
Exactly. I mean, Dr. Hans can tell you what an EF means. My heart was working only 10%.
So I think what we've learned that's really important is you have control over your health. You can change your diet, you can exercise a little bit, you can eat natural foods, and taking control of your health and life, it's up to you.